whenever there's some positive change made, there's always like a conservative element that's resisting it, holding on,
Right.
and commonly for superficial reasons and some fear of how one might lose out in some way. So Sri Chaitanya definitely faced that, but it was a way of he's Yuga. We've been talking about Yuga Dharma. He's the Yuga avatar. He's the manifestation of Krishna that comes to present the Dharma for the Yuga. And he inaugurated this kind of beautiful, super beautiful way, just kind of taking the incredible Vedic tradition and just cracking it open in a way that took the compassion and the grace and the mercy that was inside it, and kind of like they say even in these texts, broke open the storehouse, like just kind of cracked it open and said it's for everybody now, because in this day and age we're desperate. It's like we're all dented cans. We need to crack this thing open and just start passing it out like crazy. Give people the easiest method. We're all going to sing and dance together, and we're not going to worry about the external so much. And so that's what he did. So yeah, as Raghunath Prabhu was saying, Maha Mantra has always been there. It's there recorded in the Upanishads, and maybe it wasn't even emphasized so much, but there were always people that were chanting. Maybe if we go to South India, their main mantra is like Om Namo Narayanaya, like this. But it's a beautiful esoteric mantra, and it's also a very potent mantra. So he said, "This is the mantra This is the mantra that reveals Radha and Krishna and the relationship. The divine feminine there with the original masculine." And he popularized it and blew it open. And our faith is anyone can chant this, and it can reveal everything to one. And we can popularize it. We can take it to the streets. We can chant it anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances, and people will get tremendous benefit from it.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, the daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. It's episode 1548. It's Saturday, March 8th, 2025, and it is Q&A day. Usually we sleep until 8 o'clock live, but we made everybody get up early today, 6 o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow's interview day. We got Radhikesh, Vedic astrologer, Jyotish, on the show, trying to tie how that goes with Bhakti. How does Jyotish, is it like some pseudoscience? Is it something real? We're going to talk about it a little bit. And if you have a question about Vedic astrology, you can send it into Miss Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. In the meantime, we have Kaustubha live in Rishikesh, India. How are you, Kaustubha?
I'm doing great, Raghunath. Thank you.
Strong realization today that yeah, if not for this podcast, I wouldn't be awake this morning. I had too many reasons, good reasons, reasonable reasons not to wake up this morning. And Mara even more so. She had more good reasons not to wake up this morning. And it's one of the reasons why we started this podcast was there's some type of accountability with ourselves. And even if you're the teacher, you still want that accountability, because you're not just teaching. When we do this podcast, we're actually doing it for us. It was the number one reason why I started this, for my own showing up in the world, where I had some accountability. So today was one of those days where it sort of paid off. It's very easy to buy all these spiritual books, but to not read them. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm glad it's working for you.
It's working. It's working. How's Rishikesh?
It's nonstop action here, Raghunath. Every day, every day.
How do you deal with it? You're sort of introverted, sort of quiet, sort of thoughtful and pensive. How do you deal with it? How do you deal?
Pensive? I don't think I'm pensive.
You're not pensive? Okay.
I don't know. But
I thought pensive just meant like a deep thinker. No?
does it? I thought pensive means like there's a little bit of Let's look it up, Mary.
No.
What do you got for pensive?
Musingly or dreamingly thoughtful. Also
Yeah.
suggestive of sad thoughtfulness.
Well, you think
Yeah,
deep.
sad.
You think deep. A little melancholy.
Um,
Anyway,
yeah,
how
I'll
are you
tell you,
dealing with all these
it-
people 24/7, like a big party that doesn't end?
yeah, it's because I'm speaking publicly so much. Every time I don't I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but wherever I go, people are asking questions. So even like, I'll do an hour and a half, 2 hours at the question booth, and now it's the end of the day, and then but people have more questions. So it's a blessing actually, but it is a bit tiring. So I think I just need to pace myself a little bit. It's nothing. It's actually it's exactly what I would hope people's response would be, But I
Right.
just need to, I can realize that it doesn't, it's like there's no days off and it just keeps going every day for a month. So I'm going to have to pace it just a little bit. I got to figure out how to do that. But otherwise, I'm happy here. It's wonderful.
Super good. Super good. I saw Dharma Shakti just showed up from
Yeah,
Beach, California. Good friend of
yeah,
ours.
yeah.
So nice. All right. So it's Q&A day. That's the day people write in their questions, and we try our best to give answers. Miss Mara, do you have any announcements before we start the show?
I don't, except tonight or tomorrow is daylight savings time in the US. So if you're joining us for Radhikesh's interview, it'll be at 8 a.m. Eastern time, but Europeans and non-Americans double check the time zone.
Non-Americans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the first question is from our good friend and regular Zoomer, Road Rage, also known as Maturananda. And he's from Croatia, Split, Croatia. Hi, guys. My Dundavats. That means my respect to you, and to the whole Wisdom of the Sages team. Thank you so much for everything you are doing, and especially for the Q&A sessions, which are so informative and inspiring. I wanted to ask a question that came up during our Sage group. We talked about the chanting of the holy name. The question of the 10 offenses to the holy name came up, specifically the 9th offense. And the 9th offense is to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. How does this relate to preaching activity and sharing the holy name? How to understand this offense? Thank you for taking the time to answer your questions. I have to answer these questions. I can just give a perfunctory answer, Kaustubha. You might have a more detailed answer.
All right, get it started.
We present spiritual life to everybody, but at the same time, not everybody wants to hear it. And when people don't want to hear it, we step away. Because this process only takes place from this. Like, for example, you started your question with, I am so eager. I am so happy. It's so informative. In that eagerness for a Q&A, transcendental knowledge gets disseminated. When there's no eagerness, you're being preached to. So we put ourselves out there as this is a Vedic path that we're practicing. Like I was saying this morning, showing up for the Bhagavatam is good for me. It's not just good for the listeners. It's good for me. So we put it out there. This is our spiritual path. And a lot of people are like, I'm interested in a spiritual path. Material life ain't working so well. But if people aren't interested, then we step back from it. We're okay with that. So that's how I would explain the 9th offense. You want to maybe first start off and talk about the 10 offenses, Kaustubha, just explain what they are and who came up with them?
Oh, I believe they're coming from maybe Padma Purana. They're coming from the Puranas, and the idea is that, we did that thing a couple years back. Maybe I could kind of pull it up, but where I kind of gave like a positive spin on it, because the way that they're phrased,
It's all sort of negative.
it yeah,
Don't
it's
do
like,
this and
yeah,
don't do that.
it could sound. It's definitely that, and it just has a it was written for an audience that wasn't triggered by the same things that we're all triggered by nowadays. So it sounds real. I don't know, like you're
Antiquated.
yeah, but like, or you're taking a vow to enter into some cult or something like that, you know. You can't offend this person, you can't offend that person. But really, what it's about is that there's a whole theology the to the chanting of God's names. It's considered the Yuga Dharma. It's considered, you know, the most important way to meditate, to reconnect to God, most important, powerful spiritual practice. That there's a simple way to connect. There are other more complicated ways, like Ashtanga yoga would be something like really difficult. You need to leave your family. You need to go out into the forest. You need to sit and try to go into a state of trance. You know, it's like incredibly difficult and complicated. Or in previous ages, there was complicated rituals to do, or things like that. So this is considered, it's a really easy way. The names are very beautiful. They have deep meaning, but beyond that, and this is where, like, when we use the word offense, this is where it comes into play. But the idea is that these names are not like ordinary sounds, like in our material realm that we're used to and that we're conditioned by. There's an object, and then the object has a name, and the name is essentially a label stuck on the object, and you could have put any other name there on top of it, and it would have worked just as well. The idea is with God's names, and this is maybe something difficult to wrap your head around, but it's something we accept in the beginning on faith, and then as we go deeper into it, hopefully we gain deeper realization about it. But the name is non-different from God. When you chant that name, you're in the presence of God, and that's where this question of, you could say, offense. I would like to, really, the Sanskrit word is aparad, and arad or radhanam refers to, we would even translate as worship, but even that, I think we could say, you know, like, it's sharing it's like a beautiful affection, you know. It's like we have in a relationship here, right? And my aradhanam is my showing affection. And so this would, aparad would be something that's a counter to, unfavorable to the full flowing of one's natural loving affection.
By the way, Kaustubh, Mara pulled up that list, how you sort of rewrote the 10 offenses to make them a little bit more digestible in our modern age.
Okay.
You want me to read one of them or all of them?
Well, we could just jump
Here's
to
number 9.
Since that's the one.
With a deep sentiment for just how sacred Krishna's names and pastimes are, one has to carefully consider who they explained the esoteric side of bhakti to, because a lot of people will not be able to understand it and are likely to respond in a way that only further removes them from understanding it. You know, I never read this. You did a great job on that. Good for you, Mr. K.
Thank you, Raghunath. Thank you.
I got to read this more. Okay, this is great.
Well, you know, you want to go through them all? We can go through them all.
No, but this is on our Wisdom of the Sages Instagram posts.
And it was from episode 244.
Episode 244. Okay.
Okay. So here's the thing. The way that bhakti works, I know that you're into it now, Raghunath.
Now I'm into it. You're smart and wise. So I'm going to put a pause on you right now and look at something you did
read all this great stuff
ago.
So the way bhakti works is our fundamental faith is that by nature we're blissful, we're happy, we're eternal, we're full of knowledge, we're full of bliss. But that's been covered over. We're out of touch with that, because within our minds we have programmed all kind of crazy ideas. I need external things to be happy, or false sense of identity of who I am, so on. So there's like a lot of our minds that can be by very powerful spiritual content is the names of God. But if we consider these names of God like a powerful electric flow, then there's certain conceptions, there's certain sentiments, and there's certain aspects of our lifestyle that will facilitate the flow, that'll keep it flowing and flowing strong. And there are also misconceptions and counter sentiments and problematic lifestyle, aspects of one's lifestyle that will block the flow.
Just like I have the yamas and the niyamas of the yoga system.
Yamas and the niyamas.
Yamas and
Yeah,
niyamas of the yoga
yeah,
system.
those
You have
are
like sort of rules of chanting in the same way there's rules and behaviors and thought processes of your consciousness while you're practicing the yoga system
sure.
or any
And,
system
yeah, I suppose.
has some
And,
work.
and so our sentiments, particularly in bhakti, are so important. You know, if we're trying to develop a very soft heart, like let's say, you know, like Raghunath moved me into his home for like, you know, a year or something like that. And,
Yep.
you know, then I would have to, if I wanted to really connect with him and really be welcome there and for our relationship to really flourish, I would have to be sensitive. I would have to see our relationship as something sacred, something very special. And I would have to behave um, in line with that. So I would be careful not to like offend things that were dear to you. You know, like you know what I'm saying? I would see those things as sacred, those people, those things as sacred. We want to be really careful to keep the name of God, um, to keep it sacred, to treat it in such a way where our mind will become accustomed to recognizing just how sacred it is, and and not behave in any way that hardens us to that. And so we call these nine aparads, or I'm sorry, these 10 aparads. It's 10 ways where we might harden ourselves to God or to things that are in relation to God. You know, that will kind of block this
Mm.
powerful flow. So the idea is the name is it's a person. It's a fully conscious living being that has qualities and powers, but it's just not dead sound. You know, it's we deal with this name like we're dealing with the person. You know, we have our japa beads, you know, that we chant our my japa beads around, that we chant our rounds on. We hold them with some reverence. We don't just throw them anywhere. You know, we don't just like throw them on the ground. You know, it's like because we want to treat them as if they're very special, and that way when we pick them up and we chant on them, that our hearts open. You know, and so similarly, just like say I was bringing Raghunath into a group of people. Say my relationship with Raghunath was very important to me, and I was bringing him into a group of people. And I was going to introduce him to those people, but let's say they all hated punk rock, or they were all like into punk rock but hated his band or something like that, right? You know, so like if I
Yeah.
said, "Hey, here's Raghunath," and they offended him, they, you know, I'm not doing anything good for my relationship with Raghunath or for their relationship with Raghunath if I do that. I would have to maybe speak with them first and get them to the point where they were open, you know, to meet him and, and treat him respectfully. And so similarly,
I get where you're going with this.
yeah, so similarly with the names of Krishna, people may not be ready to respond openly or respectfully with that name. Then we should recognize that and and just be careful. You know, use some common sense. It doesn't mean that we're not supposed to share this. It doesn't mean that we're not supposed to even go out on the street and chant these names. But it definitely means that we want to be a little careful, particularly about the esoteric aspects, the very confidential side of bhakti, who we share with. We share as much as people are ready for.
Sure. I like that.
Okay.
I really I'm going to go through all these ones that you rewrote, and I'm going to
All
use
right.
them, steal them, I'm going to borrow them, I'm going to share them.
Tattoo them?
It's not tattoo them, but I will use them on a
Sure.
regular
Mera. How
basis. I
about
think
Mera?
that it's important to this is not copyright infringement. In Bhakti, we call this just taking something valuable and passing it along. Hey, before we get into the next question, Kaustubha, shout out to one of the OG original Wisdom of the Sages live members, Thomas Essig, who's going through some
Yeah.
serious health issues right now. So we're going to
Wow.
give him a Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Love you, Thomas. Krishna's got a divine plan for you. And I know you're going through it. So we're sending a lot of love, sending a lot of prayers for healing, health, well-being. He's a talented filmmaker. He did the movie Something Divine and working on tons of other stuff, but he is going through it right now. And we love him. Just
I'm
want to put
sorry
that
to
out
hear
there
that.
today. Yeah. Material world is quite brutal at times.
No doubt.
you know. And sometimes we get a real little relief where we're thinking, "Wow, this is so great. This material world is great." No, it's not. It's a thorny place, the material world. While we're healthy, we should be really focused, because it's hard to focus when you're not feeling well, when you're going through it physically. So we can look at it as like, this is our practice right now. When we're healthy and strong, this is the time to really go inside when it seems like the least important thing to do. Like, everything's good outside. Why would I go inside? I'm healthy. I'm strong. I'm attractive. That's the time. Go inside. Don't wait till you're like, I need your help. You know, prepare for it now with an internal life. Okay. This is the next question from Marie via email. This is a great question. Did people chant the Maha Mantra before Lord Chaitanya appeared? If not, what did they chant? So I'll also give it maybe a preemptive little talk about this, and you can elaborate if you like. The Maha Mantra is an eternal mantra, and it's in the what is it? The
Santarana Upanishad?
Santarana Upanishad. It's an ancient mantra from the Upanishads. And in the same way, I always use this, you know, the Adirondack panther. They say it's extinct. I've used it. Or the Black Panther, sometimes I say. Sometimes they say this panther, they're extinct. It doesn't exist anymore. It does exist. People see it. If you live upstate, people find panthers. But they just say, for the most part, they're extinct. But in the turn of the century, the 20th century, they were there. People found them and people hunted them. And so things go out of fashion, say, and then they remanifest again. And so the Maha Mantra becomes popularized and then it disappears. And what we're dealing with is a very sort of secretive mantra. But it wasn't until the medieval times, the 1400s, that Chaitanya came and he popularized it for anybody outside of caste, outside of creed, outside of even Sanatana Dharma, to practice this mantra as the fast track for spiritual evolution. And as Kaustubha called it, the Yuga Dharma, means in this age that we live in, this is the Dharma. It's not renunciation. It's not walking away from the world. It's not walking away from your family. It's not cave dwelling. It's not, you know, a tiny home. It is Bhagavat Dharma, hearing the message of the Bhagavatam. It is hearing the holy name on a regular basis, making it a practice, changing the sounds that are running through your mind. And sound is the most transformative thing. So Lord Chaitanya reintroduced what was just sort of lost or sort of covered over. He popularized it for everybody, which, you know, you got to understand, India was at a strict caste system where only Brahmanas could give out mantras. Only Brahmanas could be gurus. This is actually, no. This has nothing to do with where you were born. It has to do with your qualifications. And we're going to give the highest thing to anybody here because it's Kali Yuga. It's a special sort of, how do you like, sort of a President's Day sale or triple coupon day, something like that. And so, yeah, Lord Chaitanya. So it was there. It was chanted. I'd be curious if, like, someone like Lord Chaitanya's Param Guru, like Madhavendra Puri. Have you ever heard of that?
Did he chant Maha Mantra?
Yeah, did he chant the Maha Mantra as his spiritual sadhana, or was it something exclusively Lord Chaitanya, you know, introduced?
Well, we know that it was given to him by Ishwar Puri, by his guru Ishwar Puri, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. I don't know of any reference, although you know, it's not like something that I've been looking for. But if it was there with Madhavendra Puri, I would expect that it would be, but I can't say. Mantra given to Sri Chaitanya by Ishwar Puri. And yeah, you know, what you're saying is so important, Raghunath. It's considered the Yuga Dharma. And as you're saying, you see, there are a couple waves of bhakti that swept over India, you know. If we go back to the 8th century, that's the time of Shankaracharya. And previous to him was like this Vedic age, or Buddhist age, and previous to that, like a Vedic age.
When were the
Excuse me.
Alwars?
Let me drink.
When were those Bhakti Alwars of South India?
Hours are spread out over a long period of time, like over a millennia, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they weren't like like the six Goswamis. They weren't contemporaries.
Okay.
But and if we go back like 1,000 years to the time of Ramanuja, or back like 1,200 years or so, back to the time of Shankar, the Vedic culture was very strong, and there was a very strong emphasis on the Varnashram Dharma, as you're saying, the caste system, which eventually became known as. And there were ideas that, like, yeah, the Vedic mantras, that's for Brahmanas to chant. Nobody else is even allowed to chant them. You shouldn't share this stuff. It's the domain of the Brahmanas. And I can understand how that might be, and why that makes sense. But there's also another side to it, right? That in this day and age, we're all relatively fallen. A lot of the Brahmanas are the pits. And but there was another wave about 500 years ago. And it was a wave, like, historically, we can look at it, and we can see it happening in practically every region of India, because in one sense, India is like a whole conglomeration of different countries. It wasn't even called India, it was like all these different areas, all these different
Hindustan.
states.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So all of these different states with all their different languages and related culture, but each one had an individual culture. And about 500 years ago, we see saints arise in all these different places. In Bengal, there's Sri Chaitanya, in we see in Rajasthan, across Rajasthan, and what's now Gujarat, Vallabha and his teachings became popularized at that time. In Maharashtra, there's Tukaram, and we can go all over the face of India, and also see that at that time there were also great saints that were translating these teachings of bhakti into the local vernaculars, right, into the local languages. And so in this way, really opening up these teachings widely. And with that was this kind of a glorification of devotion over external concerns.
Yeah.
So just as you're saying, like, it would seem like the saints would always come from the Brahminical sector, from these priests and teachers, these elevated people. But in the about 500 years ago, the trend was more like, let's find the real essence. Who's got bhakti? And if we see it in someone who's born in a Muslim family, if we see it from someone who's born in a Shudra family, a common laborer's family, nobody's saying, oh, they can't be our teacher because they're not born in the right caste. No, if they've got it, they've got it. And that's all we care about. And so Sri Chaitanya's taking a Sanskrit mantra from the Upanishads, setting it to music, singing it out loud, and
Publicly.
popularizing it. Yeah, so that, like, everybody take part. That was a radical thing.
He was singing it publicly when it was against the law by the colonists, by the invaders, to chant it publicly.
Right.
It was something just unheard of. It was a
and there was a lot of blowback coming from the kind of the rigid, shallow Hindu religious community who wanted to maintain their power, their influence. Oh, look what they're doing. They're chanting these mantras. We chant certain mantras at certain times of the day, where only certain people are allowed to chant them. And they were kind of resisting this, because rather than be excited that, look at this, people are getting a fervor for the Lord that's in my temple, right? Instead they're like, oh, my influence is seeping away here. Now people don't need me. Normally they would give me a donation and hire me to chant some mantras for them. Now they're just chanting mantras whenever they want, out loud to music, and dancing around, and any time of the day. And so they had all, whenever there's some positive change made, there's always like a conservative element that's resisting it, holding on,
Right.
And commonly for superficial reasons and some fear of how one might lose out in some way. So Sri Chaitanya definitely faced that, but it was a way of he's Yuga. You know, we've been talking about Yuga Dharma. He's the Yuga avatar. He's the manifestation of Krishna that comes to present the Dharma for the Yuga, and he inaugurated this kind of beautiful, super beautiful way. You know, just kind of taking the incredible Vedic tradition and just cracking it open in a way that took the compassion and the grace and the mercy that was inside it, and kind of like they say even in these texts, broke open the storehouse, you know, like just kind of cracked it open and said it's for everybody now, because in this day and age we're desperate. It's like we're all dented cans. We need to crack this thing open and just start passing it out like crazy. Give people the easiest method. You know, we're all going to sing and dance together, and we're not going to worry about the external so much. And so that's what he did. So yeah, as Raghunath Prabhu was saying, Maha Mantra has always been there. It's there recorded in the Upanishads, and maybe it wasn't even emphasized so much, but there were always people that were chanting. You know, maybe if we go to South India, their main mantra is like Om Namo Narayanaya, you know, like this. But it's a beautiful esoteric mantra, and it's also a very potent mantra. So he said, this is the mantra this is the mantra that reveals Radha and Krishna in the relationship, you know, the divine feminine there with the you know, the original masculine. And he popularized it and blew it open, and our faith is anyone can chant this, and it can reveal everything to one, and we can popularize it. We can take it to the streets. We can chant it anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances, and people will get tremendous benefit from it.
This tsunami.
Yeah.
Okay. That was a good answer.
Right. Yeah, yours too.
Good and complete. This is from Jay Robinson via the Sage Community Chat.
Okay.
It's a great name, isn't it? Jay Robinson.
Jerry, you like that?
I like that name.
Because it's got like a bird, like blue jay, and then it's got a robin as well. It's like two
But
birds.
he could also be a devotee name like Jay.
Jaya Robinson.
Jay Robinson. Or as they say in Bengal, Joy Robinson.
Well, here's to you, Mr. Robinson.
All right. So grateful to have been introduced to the Wisdom of the Sages podcast recently. We really do have a wonderful community, don't we? It was the last thing I thought we'd like have out of this podcast. I thought people would get into it, but it's developed into a real fabric of a community with all its layers and different people coming together and groups of friends. It's quite wonderful. So happy for myself, Jay. So grateful to have been introduced to this community. Each episode is inspiring, educational, and fun. Okay. I think you make it educational. I make it fun. What do you think about that?
I'd like to think that you make it a little educational. I make it a little fun.
I don't think so.
All right.
If you had it your way, none of this would be fun.
And if you had it your way.
Okay. I really appreciate your experience and wisdom and find inspiration in the fact that you both grew up very much outside of the devotee world and having connected with Krishna in such a beautiful and organic way. I wouldn't say it was beautiful. We were introduced to it by a street gang in New York City on the Lower East Side, but it in that sense, but because it became something very beautiful in that sense, it is beautiful. My partner Justine and I, and our good friend Kathy, have been hosting weekly by donation Kirtan for the past 3 years or so in our town. I wonder what town that is. Kirtan, mantra, and chanting have become a huge part of my life. And while we chant to many deities, my devotion for Krishna is strong. I am a musician, and my partner and I run a sound healing studio where we host Kirtan and sound baths. I have been reading the Bhagavad Gita daily for 7 to 8 years, and it has been very beneficial to me. I continue to find new insight and perspective with the Gita every time I read from it. Boom. I like this guy. Here's my question. I am feeling called to add another offering, a free offering, at our studio, which I'm picturing as a Bhagavad Gita class of sorts. 40 minutes of reading the Gita, discussion, and then 20 minutes of Maha Mantra call and response Kirtan each week. I'm not initiated, do not have a guru, and my respect for tradition and lineage has me uncertain if I'm qualified to lead a class such as this. We are in a small town of 20,000, and there are no temples and no one else offering this type of dedicated class. If there was, I would go. My motivation with the class is to spark some discussion and look at Krishna's teachings in the Gita and how they can apply to our lives to encourage growth, awareness, and connection. Our weekly kirtan is almost entirely chanting, which is awesome, but I feel there are others who would also benefit from getting into deeper discussions in this way. Is this something I should move forward with, or should I look to connect with someone who is more qualified? Any help or guidance you can share is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Oh, let's do this again. I'll touch on it, and you put the frosting. What do you say, Kaustubha?
All right.
I wish we had 10 million J. Robinsons doing this. Matter of fact, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I think you have a type of chastity to the tradition, even though you're saying you appreciate the tradition. You have some type of chastity to the tradition. You do have teachers because you're listening to this podcast and you're listening to other, you're hearing the purports of the Gita, and you're probably listening to other lectures online. And it is important for people who listen to Kirtan to hear philosophy, or else you won't have the proper understanding of the Maha Mantra, of these names of divinity. And it will just become a sort of a cultural singing of songs. We need to understand the philosophy with the Maha Mantra and with the holy name to actually transform. It'll have some effect otherwise, but we want the deepest effect. And I love that you're already cued into this, and I think your people will like it also. The only thing I would add to this, not that you asked me, and I don't like to give unsolicited advice, but to really make this next level, guess what I'm going to say, Kaustubha?
Oh, I don't know, Raghunath. You surprised me.
I don't think you were listening, were you?
I was listening.
You were not listening, but that's okay.
You're saying you wish there were 10 million Jays out there.
Nice try.
You're
nice
going
try.
on and on about how important this is.
You weren't listening. Okay, here's what I would add. Even from the most simple thing, to make that program be a grand slam, you need to add prasad distribution. Make some type of prasad, simple prasad, whatever you make good. Offer it to Krishna with love and devotion, and then distribute to your guests free of charge. That will make it a grand slam home run. There's something magical in prasad, as there's something in the Maha Mantra, as there's something in the philosophy of the Gita. And when you do those things three together, this was Prabhupada's very simple formula. Matter of fact, satsangs like this exist forever. They've always existed. It's only until recently where you could have a concert. You pay, you have a kirtan, it's, $50 or $25 or something, and you go to it like you're going to a concert. Generally, these satsangs had philosophy, they had music, and they had prasad. And this is a great formula for transformation. And people might come for the philosophy. People might come for the kirtan. People might just come for your prasad. But whatever it is, it's affecting them with spiritual potency. And they all have spiritual potency. So I give a double thumbs up for you to go ahead with this. And our whole Krishna consciousness movement in the West got started by people who had less qualifications than you, but just had those blessings of Prabhupada to, hey, let's take this to the next level. And sending people here and there when they were eight months devoted. You're going to go to South America. You're going to go to China. You're going to go to Toledo, Ohio. And you're going to open a temple there. And you're going to read the Bhagavad Gita. And you're going to give out prasad. And you're going to chant the holy name. And that's exactly what you're doing right now. And you're doing it on his order, on the Guru's order, on Prabhupada's order, on Lord Chaitanya's order to spread the holy name in every town and village. Good for you, Jay Robinson. Here's to you, Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Robinson.
Krishna loves you more than you would know. Ho, ho, ho. Oh, happy Saturday, my friend.
All right. Would you
I
like?
should be doing
Now's
my
where
own
you're supposed to
cacao
cue me up.
ceremonies. Kaustubha, I want to hear what you have to
Cacao.
say. Well, I told you I'm drinking my
All right.
superfood hot chocolate, but I've been drinking cacao, man. Well, people were still eating carob brownies. I've been into this.
All right.
Okay, so
I I'm with you, Raghunath. I really appreciate what Jay and Justine are doing, and their good friend Kathy as well,
yeah,
hosting their weekly kirtan. And I'm in agreement with you that if we don't get some of the Bhakti philosophy along with it, then people tend to not really understand what it is. And the more that they understand what it is, the better. So I think it's a great idea to bring a Bhagavad Gita class into it. Now, what I'm picking up, if I understand Jay correctly, is he wants to serve, he wants to share, and at the same time, he has what I would call a like a healthy kind of approach in that he's a little concerned, am I qualified to do this? I don't want to pose as something that I'm not. Maybe, maybe in order to do this, people are meant to be more informed or more experienced. And so I think it's sensitive of him to ask this question, to say, am I stepping over the line here? And I would say, there's one story that we've had Sham Sundar Prabhu and we've had Malati on the show. They were very early disciples of Srila Prabhupada. They had a child together. And even when they were just fully surrendered and taking off to London and to India and so on with their little child, in tow, they were bringing her along. And Prabhupada used to take joy in seeing little Saraswati was her name. And she would just go up and tug on someone's, jacket or something or shirt and say, do you know who Krishna is? And they say, no. And she would say, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada would say, this is perfect preaching. Like she's heard one thing, she's understood it, and she's sharing it, And I think that's, you can take that, take heart from that we share what we have. And we do live in an age where people become yoga teachers just by taking some quick thing and they get a certification and they're really not so informed on it. People become life coaches when they're 20 years old and they really haven't lived any life yet. People become business consultants. I'm going to show you how to make lots of money when they haven't made any money themselves, and they're just kind of pitching a pyramid scheme. Like that is unfortunate. People should require greater, have a greater background, a greater education before they take certain roles. But I think the role that you're taking here, you can take that, share what you have, and I think the key is this. Just don't pose as anything that you're not. Just don't fake it. Don't try to, just as you're very honestly presenting yourself to us right now. I'm relatively new to this. I'm not so well trained or educated in it. You can present yourself in the exact same way to your audience, and say, I'm new to this, but I'm finding a lot of value in this. Let's read together and share. I'll answer questions as best as I can, but I may not know the answer. There's a lot of great resources out there nowadays on the internet, like what is the spiritual scientist thing? I think it's called Daily Gita. Maybe someone can correct me if that's not wrong. But I think there's something out there called Daily Gita where he shares every day some thought and some teaching on Bhagavad Gita. So you could prepare some presentations just from that, read the verses that he's writing and even read directly what he's written, or paraphrase it, put it in your own words. So I think, yeah, that's the thing. It's great that you want to share it. I think everyone will benefit from it, and just don't pose as something that you're not. And then you know what happens? Then you actually become an instrument of this grace yourself. It flows through you. It's only the hypocrisy that kind of blocks it. Otherwise, it's less your lack of knowledge that's a blocker, and more any phoniness involved, So you can be a transparent via media if you're just sincere and honest, and it sounds like you are. So I encourage you to take this up and check in with us if there's any way that we can assist, and look for good resources online. Again, I would look at Chaitanya Charan, who's got so much on the Gita out there. Yeah, I think you'll have a lot to share, and your audience will grow, and maybe more than anyone, you yourself will grow through this process.
Terrible.
All
I
right.
like that. Makes sense.
Happy, Raghu? That good?
Am I
All right.
happy? That's a deep question, Kaustubha. That's a very, very
Are you
deep
happy?
question. No, I'm sad.
Why are we asking? What
I'm
happened?
sad. No, I'm very happy. That was great. You're good. You're good.
Oh,
I
okay.
like
I see.
listening to you. Okay, here's one more, final one. Dear wisdom of the sages,
Who's this from?
dear wise souls.
Who's it from?
This is from Jorgen from Netherlands. I'm going to the Netherlands, Kaustubha. I'm going away in April. I'm like going away immediately.
It's crazy, Raghunath.
Well, I got news for you. I'm going to Florida before that. I'm going to
I
Florida.
know. It's like, what are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm spreading the
What
holy
about
name
your
in every
thumper,
town and
Raghunath?
village,
Think about
sir.
your. What about
What
your
do you do?
thumper?
My thumper is feeling
What do you mean,
fine
what am I
right now.
Yeah, right
Bless me.
now, but you got to take care of it.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm sorry?
Executing the will of the Lord. I'm on a mission from God, my friend.
All right. Why don't you read the question, Raghu?
All right. Dear wise souls of wisdom of the sages, it has been some time since I sent you a question for Q&A day. The truth is that I have been lost in my mind for some time. I got that. Been there, done that. I had to figure out the things for myself, which direction to go in life. A crash with my bike, I think bicycle, felt like God or Krishna stopped me from my anxiety and procrastination to get my act together. Like he said to me, stop worrying so much, rest, and start to think deeply which way you need to go. You know what? Sometimes you need a little crash. So you need a little break. You need a little chance to sort of pull over
Yeah.
and sort of, check the map, so to speak. Am I going in the right direction? What do I really want? What is actually important? And sometimes it comes in the form of crashing your bike. Now that I'm a bit further in my reinventing myself, I feel I need to make some changes food-wise for health reasons, right? Sometimes we need that wake-up call. Like, this is not what I want my body to become like. Anyway, then he stumbled upon this word, Ekadashi. Can you please explain to me in a simple way what it means and how it works? What will be the benefit from it and its downsides, if there are any? I searched for it on Wikipedia, but it looked complex to me. Thank you so much for time and effort to explain it for me and others. Much love. Let's try this formula of answering questions one more time. I'll give an introduction. You finish it off, Kaustubha. Good with that?
No, I want to do it the other way.
No, there's no other way. There's one way to do. There's one way to do things in this world.
Your way?
Only just because I don't think I'm going to do it justice if I explain like the actual, the greater, broader picture of Ekadashi. Because Ekadashi is not just done by devotees of Lord Vishnu; it's done by anybody who follows a Hindu path. Because there's material benefits you get from Ekadashi as well, but because we're in this tradition of essence, we're in a tradition of essential. We do it for one thing only. We do it for Bhakti. Now you get some other benefits, sure. If you restrict your diet at all, you generally get some benefit from it, don't you? If you've been eating like a little piggy for every day of the month, but for 2 days of that month, on the 11th day of the waxing and the waning moon, you say, you know what? I'm going to pull back. I'm going to restrict my diet. I'm only going to eat fruit. I'm only going to eat some vegetables. I'm going to maybe do a juice fast, maybe a complete water fast in those days. You're going to get some health benefits. But the yogis say you actually get other benefits as well. But we're saying you do it in the mood of devotion to Lord Krishna, and you get this special bhakti benefit on those days. It actually can enhance your bhakti. They say it's the mother of devotion, Ekadashi. So the Ekadashi means like the 11th day. If you count from the full moon, 11 days, that's one of the Ekadashis. And from the new moon or the Amavasya or the dark moon and count up, that's the 11th day of the moon. And it's big in India. Everybody follows Ekadashi. But
no, not everybody.
a lot of people follow it. It's like
Okay,
not
some
everybody
people-
follows Christmas.
There's a few
but
people in
yeah.
India that follow it.
No, there's a lot of people that follow Ekadashi.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in India, but
Well, there's a lot of people in America that don't follow Christmas, but you know, a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
a lot more people, higher percentage.
Are
of
you
people.
here to like rip apart every detail? Are you the fact
No,
checker?
but you said everybody in India follows it.
You're
Lord
right,
Chaitanya's
Mr.
mother wasn't
Fact
following
Checker.
it. All right.
Lord Chaitanya's mother. Oh, all right. Well, sometimes it happens. Can I continue, please?
Sorry, I didn't mean to take the wind out of your sails there. I just thought, let's not go overboard here.
You're right.
okay?
It was an exaggeration, fact checker.
Okay. Come on, jump right back in now.
Okay. So anyway,
I blew it. I cut your flow off.
You blew it.
Sorry,
The
I
flow
didn't
is
know it was going to be
empty.
that.
God was speaking to me, and you basically
Sorry.
put up the hand in
I'm
front of God. So now you take over
I'm
from
sorry.
here, Kaustubha. What did we do?
Sorry.
But you had to
All
make
right.
your
Well,
point.
you know,
You had to make your point.
I didn't know it was going to be so consequential. I just thought it'd be a little side note, and you just keep flowing. I didn't know it was
wasn't
going
me
to trip you up
talking,
like that.
It was God talking, and you stopped God. So continue now.
All right. Maybe God can speak through me now. Let's see.
Well, we'll see about that.
Bless me so that. Okay. So, you know, it's an astrological consideration, and a lot of people don't have a lot of faith in astrological stuff. We do. I tell you, I was just speaking to an astrologer yesterday, and he was kind of giving some advice to someone I knew, or not. He was kind of going through the chart and sharing some things, and it was like, oh my God, this guy is like so on. How could he? It was one of those things like, how could he know all this? You know, like nail on the head beyond just like the kind of thing that's coincidental.
I didn't share my astrology experience in Jaipur. I got my chart done, and the guy was the first thing out of his.
Well, one up me. Go right ahead.
No, I'm not. I'm endorsing you. I'm not upping you. I'm endorsing you.
All right.
First thing he said to me goes,
Go for it.
"Your chart is all about communication. Your chart. You need to be a communicator. I was like, you go travel the world, communicate. You got to step into this more." I was like, "This is what I do." He goes, "Now's the." Right, what else did he say?
That you're very sociable.
Okay.
You like to always be around people. You're like uplifted and joyful, and you have like a religious message to preach, basically.
Yeah, it was like he didn't know me from Adam. It's okay.
Okay. Well, some of those things, like if you saw the Tulsi beads on your neck and the tilak on your face, then the religious part, he could pry you.
I was dressed like a tourist. I was in Jaipur.
Okay.
I had a collared shirt on. I had no tilak on. Look at my hair. I look like an old man.
Well, it was
Yeah? You
interesting
backing that up?
because, yeah, I didn't catch the entire meeting that you had in person, but he gave Raghu his chart to like take home and read. And when I read through that, it was actually like unbelievably accurate.
It was even more accurate.
Unbelievable.
It was even more accurate than what he read to
stuff.
me.
You have a house chicken in your home. I'm seeing a
He said,
chicken.
he said, "I see a bird, a bird of sorts."
Okay, but it's an astrological calculation, and there's two important things that we recognize as Gaudiya Vaishnavas following in our lineage. One is that we fast from grains and beans, because it is said that it's not wise to eat them at that time. Right now, that's to most people that's going to sound like, what are you talking about? You know, you get some kind of negative influence by eating grains and beans while there's a certain astrological configuration.
Yes, you do.
It's one of those things I just accept. I just accept it. Yeah, I don't worry too much about that. But perhaps it's I follow that, but then it's the other part that's really exciting. It's like it's a special opportunity, and it happens every couple weeks. And when you're trying to build something, when you're trying to grow something, like let's say you have a garden, and you knew that in a couple weeks there's going to be like a lot of sun or a lot of rain, or like a good opportunity for your garden. And if you were to go out and prune the plants right now, they're going to grow super extra than they normally, because this rain is coming or because this sun is coming, but it's only coming at this time. So put some extra effort in right now, and it really pays off. Long run, like whatever you accomplish right in this period is going to make a big difference. So that's how we see Ekadashi. It's an opening up. It's a special opportunity in the garden of our Bhakti growth. It's a special opportunity. We try not to let, if you were a gardener and you just let that slip by and you didn't take it seriously, your garden is going to suffer for it. Or to phrase it the other way, you missed out on a really great opportunity. And if your life's goal is to make this garden fully abundant, then you don't miss those opportunities if you really understand how beneficial they are. An experienced gardener would know, oh, this is a great opportunity. You make priority, you change your priorities and really focus right now, and it's going to pay off. That's how the Vaishnavas, that's how the Bhakti Yogis see Ekadashi. On this day, comes every 2 weeks, you got a really special opportunity. Don't let it slip by. You complain that I've been chanting this mantra so long and I haven't fully developed a taste for it and I haven't, let go of all my material desires and this and that. Well, take this opportunity. Don't let these opportunities slip by. And so you could take that Ekadashi day and try to minimize activities that aren't directly related to Bhakti and try to maximize those activities that are. So you might want to chant more. You might want to read these texts and meditate on them more. You might want to try to serve more on that day. Simplify your life. Fast from grains and beans, maybe even fast more than that. Maybe do a half-day fast, entire fast, for the whole day. Use your time wisely. Try not to absorb your mind in trivial stuff. If you have some tedious work that has to be done, try not to do it on that day. Try to leave this day open, so that you can have a stronger focus on your spiritual practices. And the promise is that it'll be worth many times what it would be on any other day. So you go for it. Something like that. Is that all right, Raghu?
Oh, Kaustubha, you're very, very
Is God speaking through me?
very good. No, he wasn't, but
Was
you
I
spoke
flowing?
well. I'm just kidding.
No, he
Perhaps
wasn't
God
speaking through
was.
at all.
Perhaps God-
All right.
Anyway, that's our show for today, though.
No, he
sir.
wasn't. All right.
Thanks, everybody, so much.
What are you up to
Hey,
today,
did you
Raghu?
get the
What are you doing?
book, Punk to Monk? If
Which-
you haven't got my book, check it out.
I've heard
Punk to
about it.
Monk, available everywhere, especially Amazon, also available on Audible. If you do have the book, do me a favor, go to Amazon and write a review of it. I read all the reviews that people put up. Also, if you like this podcast, you can go to Apple Podcasts and please write us a review. Give us a 5-star review. That helps people find it in the algorithms. And it's appreciated, and I read them all. Want to thank everybody who is our Sage Community Platform members. That's our monthly contribution for people who want to keep this show going. It's a community-supported podcast, and we have a sweet, sweet community. A lot whom we get to know personally over the years. Also, Wisdom of the Sages is having a first retreat this season in the spring, Memorial Day weekend at Super Soul Farm. We haven't opened registration yet, but if you're interested to hold your spot, write to Miss Mara, Wisdom of the Sages, 108@gmail.com. Oh, it's a beautiful Saturday. Gus had a sleepover last night, Kaustubha. Gus has a whole
Gus had a
gang of
sleepover.
dogs who live down the road. And
He was
even though
always
he's
this
old,
loner. Now he's got all these other. He's got a gang.
he's got a
Even in his
gang.
old age.
He's got a gang of other
Got
labs
social.
that he hangs out with.
Are they old or are they young?
They're young versions of him,
That's
and they
crazy.
love him. They love him, and he comes over
They
there
love him.
as the master.